Hello everyone, I'm talking from Auckland, New Zealand, and today's topic is housing. A lot of you are probably wondering, you'll come here, what should I do with my house and where should I live, what are the rules, what are the options? And the answer for that, of course, varies and dependent on your situation. If you are a couple with kids, couple without kids, singles, man, woman, student, traveler, visa type, it varies. And the needs of housing also varies. So this subject is very, very big. But let's try to make it simple, break it down. I'll share a bit of my experience with the housing here in New Zealand and also experience of my friends over the years. Actually, my first housing experience in New Zealand is living in a van. Yes, when I was a traveler, I lived a van life for almost a year. A van life means basically have your bed in the back of the van, and every day you need to look for toilet and shower or where to stay. But for immigration purposes, I'm not going to talk a lot about that. I will fast forward to the housing situation when you actually study, work, or live in New Zealand as an immigrant. So, when I came to New Zealand, the first few weeks, I stayed in Chabad house just for a few weeks, and the next I looked for rental options and I found a place quite cheap. So basically it was a couple who renting a whole house and they are renting the room in the house. So in this way, probably they cover all the rent or maybe not. And they just renting one of the rooms. And the positives on being a head tenant is, of course, that you are in charge of the home and you can rent the other rooms and you probably can cover all your rent if you rent the right property, and you won't be able to, and you won't need to pay rent at all. And of course, the negatives of that is you need to choose carefully the people you are going to live, because you're going to share a house. And sometimes people maybe not pay or will move or won't stay long, who knows. But you made agreement with the landlord. Landlord is the owner of the house, or the company who manages the house. So in New Zealand there are companies who manage the house. For example, a Chinese investor bought a house in Auckland. He's living in China. He don't want to manage the property. It means look for tenants and do maintenance, all these things. So you're paying some amount of money to the property management company, and they are doing all the work. And in New Zealand, especially in Auckland, I'm talking mainly about the Auckland region, housing became a big business. Probably the same as Tel Aviv and Russia and other big cities around the world. Housing is not for renters, it's not actually a place to call home. It's more like a business, a lot more like that. Anyway, so my point is, when you are head tender and you are renting a house, you make an agreement. The best agreement is the tenancy agency. It's a government agency that has the most legal protection on your side. I will touch base a little bit about other agreements and what people do. And you obligated to pay them for a year, 2 years, whatever the agreement is. Usually it's 6 months up to a year contract. And you pay in bond. Bond, it means it's a certain payment, usually 3-4 weeks rent worth, that you won't damage the house too much or any other issue that might occur, or maybe you won't pay rent or whatever. It's kind of security. So the bond is paid to the landlord. Can be, if the rent of the house is like 600 New Zealand dollars per week. So your rent, if it's 4 weeks, it's like multiplied by 4 and you pay that plus 1 week rent in advance. This is what you usually do. And of course you must pay the rent. So if your tenants will move and leave, so sometimes you can have times that you pay in quite big pay. So if you just rent in a room, maybe you'll pay 200 per week. But if you own in the whole house, you're paying 600. And if you are a couple, it's really a good option to rent a whole house and being head tenant, decide about the rules of the house, and maybe even not pay rent at all if you can get 4-bedroom house in a good renting price and rent the rooms for 200 each. So not paying rent at all. Another thing, a lot of landlords also, they have the owners and they're living in the home. And you just renting a room and living with the family or the landlords, and then they just renting rooms just to help cover mortgage or just have additional payment. Doesn't matter, but this is another option. Something in Israel or other countries I didn't really encounter with, but in Israel it's not really something that I heard. But here it's normal. Go to a home and rent a room and just live. So let's look about it from a person who just rent the room. If you're renting a room, it's called boarder. You are boarding with the family, with the landlord, with the head tenant that I described. And you can't make the agreement of the tenancy agency because they are covering only rentals. And you have Tenancy Act. It's like a law in legislation. And it protects you from different things that the landlord might not do. For example, paying bond. So let's say you are renting a house from a landlord and you're not living in them. It's entire property by your own. Yeah? You rent it for entire years. So you have the proper tenancy agreement. And you covered under Tenancy Act. And for example, if the bond, the landlord required to submit it after a month of receiving your bond, and they require to give you receipt that they actually received the bond from you. It can be in cash or it can be in bank transfer, doesn't matter, but they require to submit the bond, the money, to the agency when you finish the living with them or in this property, you can claim back the bond, and if there will be no issues, you'll take your money back. So what's happening if you are going on a contract as a boarder, but not as a head tenant? You're not renting a house, just renting a room. So what's happening in the law at this point? So you actually can't sign this agreement, because this agreement you can sign only with a landlord. You can't do it with head tenant. And when you're doing that, you are less protected. So the landlord actually have a lot more power legally to dictate any rules they want. Almost. But they can dictate a lot. And you don't want to be in this situation. So, what do I mean you don't want to be in this situation? So, I'll give you some examples from my experience, because the first year that I came to Auckland, I moved about 6 times in a year until I found a proper place to live, to rent a room. Because I was on student visa, I was able legally to work on it 20 hours per week, and I needed to support myself somehow. And as you can understand, I couldn't afford to own my own property or rent my own property in Auckland in 2016 when I was a student. So I need to compromise, I need to just rent a room, alright? So for those tendencies, I lived with different landlords, with different nationalities, different cultures, and there are positives and negatives living with each of them. There is something similar with each culture when you live with them, what you would expect to have in this place. And after a while I kind of understood, okay, what is the best living situation for each person, if he's a traveler, or if he's a student, or if he's low wage, high wage. But that's after quite a lot of pay. But I'm happy that I got to this point. Anyway, so some of the issues that might occur when you just boarding. First of all, they expect to receive a bond. So it means if you need to pay $200 per week for a room, they can ask you for 3 or 2 weeks or 4 weeks bond. And who is going to hold this bond? Yes, the head tenant. It means you are going to pay $1,000 if it's 4 weeks bond. And you're paying for the tenant. And let's say you don't have the tenancy agreement, and you won't have because it's a head tenant, it's not the landlord. Or if you are boarding, so you still can't have the tenancy agreement because it's only if you are renting. So you're just doing some simple one-page agreement, general, with the terms and conditions. And the bond is not getting lodged to any agency because they're not required to. And when you finish the agreement, the bond recovery, it's totally subject to the landlord eyes. If you have good relation with the landlord, or if the person is actually genuine and good to give you the bond back. But legally speaking, there is really low chance that you will receive your bond back. And I can say a lot of my tenancies, I didn't receive all my bond back. Some places I received partial bond, some bond I didn't receive at all, and some bonds I received after going to court. Anyway, so this is another thing. You pay in the bond and it stays with the landlord. It's not going to any tenants. Second, they not require to give you notice more than what is written. So if you agreed on 2 weeks notice, so they give you, okay, in 2 weeks you need to move. Let's say you live in as a boarder and the landlord can say, oh, you shouldn't use the shower more than 10 minutes. I actually been told to do that, yeah? Don't shower less than 10 minutes. You're using the kitchen too much. There are certain times you can use the kitchen. Also some experience of my friends. After 10 o'clock, don't use the bathroom and toilet. Well, toilet you can, but the bathroom, don't shower at all after 10 o'clock because it's making a noise at home. Yes, you're paying to live there and you can't, after certain hours, go to the bathroom. Yes, that's a real requirement that some people ask for. What else? When I was looking for a room and did my research where can I live, and always I kind of asking what do I expect, and I'm kind of saying yes, I probably want to bring someone, some guests or even a partner. Some landlords say you can live here, but you can't bring a partner overnight. Some say you can't bring friends at all. You want to have friends? Meet them somewhere else. That room is only for you and you can't bring anyone. Yes? Real examples. I had landlords or a family that I lived with that threw away my stuff just without any reason. Some electric stuff, some boxes. One day waking up, where is that? Gone, nowhere. Coming to the landlord, where is that thing? Oh, I threw it out, I thought it's not needed. What would you do now? What would you do now? And let me tell you something. Do you think it's enough to tell one time? No, it happened again. Another example, you also, when I immigrated, now it's internal immigration, from Auckland to Whangarei, I agreed with another landlord for renting a room after I got my work visa already, and we agreed on one room. And yeah, we agreed on one room, and I lived in that room for several weeks. And then the landlord decided, listen, this room is going to be for my daughter, so please move to other room. I said, well, alright, I don't see any difference much. And then I moved to the other room, and the mattress there was terrible, just terrible, like terrible back pains from that. And I wasn't making big deal of moving the room. Yes, it wasn't part of the agreement, and also I forgot to put in the agreement that the room is specifically in that corner of the house. I didn't think it will be such change. I didn't expect it, but anyway, it happened. So, in the first room I had good matches, and the other room I had really bad matches. And then I said, okay, I'm going to buy my own mattress, but this mattress needs to be, I'll change it because I can't sleep in this mattress. So, what happened next? Do you think it went smooth? No, it didn't. What happened? She said, well, I can't allow you to buy a new mattress, please, I want you to move out of here. And think about how much, how would you feel? Like you don't have like sense of security, yes? When you don't have like secure accommodation like for long term, you don't have this security, and it's not fair. It's not fair, yes, but what power you have as a border? This is what I'm trying to say. Your power is really little when you're boarding. That's a goal. Yeah, so I need to move. Then I went to the next tenancy, and this time I signed proper tenancy agency agreement, and it was with a family that in the first glance they seems to be really nice, but then they didn't respect quiet time, a lot of noise at night, and I wasn't feel comfortable there. So I said, okay, I'm going to move. I don't want to live there anymore. And of course, I paid the bond in advance and paid the rent as required and everything, and did notice according to the agreement. And then after I moved out, the landlord out of the sudden decided, no, I'm not giving you your bond back, I'm giving you just half because you didn't clean your room properly. But she can't do that. This time, I made a proper agreement. Even if I was a boarder, there are some clauses that you can get more protection in this case. If I wasn't signing this agreement, I wouldn't have protection. I wouldn't have my whole bond back, and I didn't want to give up on that. It's my money. Why would I allow this to happen? It's a matter of principle, justice. So I went to court. I sued her. And the judge said, only because I signed this agreement of the tenancy agency, I could take one of the acts and actually allow the bond back. And she even didn't arrive to the court. And also she refused to pay the bond back anyway, so I needed to go further. But eventually I received it, but why? Why I need to go through all that unpleasant situation? Anyway, being a boarder in New Zealand is not a safe way to board, to live. But I must say the next tendency I just heard through word to mouth one lady that was like gold. I felt really good in that house. I trusted her and everything was fine, but that after 7 different tendencies that I felt not so good. And also that place wasn't perfect, because another thing in New Zealand, most of the houses are extremely cold and not in good condition. So you know, when you go inside the house, you want to have shelter, you want to be warm, you want to be dry. Some houses are colder compared to the outside. Now there is a law in New Zealand that all the houses need to be insulated. But it wasn't before, it's just a new law. And today I'm not boarding with anyone.